Hi everybody and welcome back to Geektube Central and our Game of Thrones Season 7 reviews. So we're on episode 4, The Spoils of War. We're at the midpoint now. And yeah, I know what you're thinking, oh great, there's only 3 episodes left, what are we going to do? But because it's not the same formula as it usually is with the 10 episode seasons, they've kind of switched it up. Episode 4 it's explosive literally, because at this point we were hoping that Daenerys was halfway onto that throne by now, but as we saw through episodes 1 to 3, it was kind of going all against her. When going into the season, it looked like she had all the cards decked in her favour. But as we saw from last week, her losing Lady Olenna and the Tyrell forces, something has to give. Either she's going to bend, or she's going to break, or she's going to bounce back. And, well, she bounced back something fierce. So let's just get straight into the episode. We pick up in King's Landing, where Cersei is meeting with Tyrion again. And he's kind of taken aback that no one, a debtor, has ever paid back all of their debt in one go. And she says, yes, well, the gold is coming, my brother's bringing it. And it's amazing how he goes from being a debt collector to a moneylender again, because once the talk of, they're going to be paying it all off in one go, it's going to be really quick. And then he turns to going, well, once it's paid back, we can help you in any other future ventures you're going to be doing. And that's when she says, right outside in the map courtroom thing, that, yes, well, my main focus is to get Westeros back on point, so to speak. And she says, well, I'll need to, replenish my armies and my navy. And he says, oh, I'm quite happy to help you with that. And she mentions how Highgarden has mentioned about the Golden Company. And that's when Tycho says, yes, the Golden Company are really good. They're quite good at actually helping us get debts recovered. Now, when he says that, Cersei says, well, it looks like I'm going to get them to recover something that belongs to me. Now, freeze right there. What does she need bringing back to her that's hers? I'm confused. Because it's not, I don't think it's like something, an item. The only thing I can think of is she talking about Tyrion and how he's hers and that she wants him back. Granted, last season and the season before that, she was saying how I want his head. That's the only thing I can think that she has in her mind that she wants back. We then move north to Winterfell, where Bran is sitting with Peter Baelish. Now, Peter Baelish pulls out this dagger. I call it the cat's paw dagger. It was the one that was used to try and kill him back in season 1. The one that his mother and Summer eventually overcame. And it's here that Littlefinger's being kind of sly, acting like the fathery figure, because, he says, oh, how much I cared about Caitlyn. I would have took the knife that killed her in my heart if I could, and I'm here for you, Brandon, whatever you need, because I just want to do what your mother would want to do, which is to protect her children. Yeah, that would be an okay sentiment if he was his father. He's just a guy that loved his mother, and, he's slimy. So he then tries to use that sort of emotional sort of repartee to try and get him to open up. Now, he's doing all the talking. He says, so you must have seen a whole lot of stuff when you were north of the wall, things that probably other people wouldn't believe. And he's just not getting anything back from Bran, because Bran's, I think, still processing the three-eyed raven information, kind of like he's been downloading the Matrix or something. And when he starts to mention how, all this chaos going on, and when he says the word chaos, that's when Bran says, chaos is a ladder. Now that stops Littlefinger straight in his tracks, because if you remember, way back in season 1, I think it was, He says that exact line to Varys when he's talking about how chaos isn't a pit, it's a ladder. Now, this is another little nugget that Bran's saying. Whenever he speaks, he always seems to have a perspective way beyond the person he's speaking to. And when he says that, it makes him automatically remember when he said that, and there was only one other person in the room, and that was Varys. So he's got the willies, so to speak. Just as Littlefinger is going oh shit in his mind and obviously trying to scurry of what to think, the door goes and in comes Meera. Now, as soon as that happens, Littlefinger says, well, I'll be going then, Lord Stark, and Bran pointedly says, I'm not Lord Stark. Now, there's not if and or buts, it doesn't matter. Theoretically he is, but you know that Bran is quite specific when he speaks, and you're like, okay, I wonder what Meera's here. You know, finally we get to see some more interaction, because so far they've just been running, dragging his ass, running, dragging his ass. But when she comes in and says, you know, I know the White Walkers are coming and I just want to go and be with my family, you know, because obviously she's lost her brother and now that he's home and safe, she wants to go and be with them. But there's this underlying tone where she's hoping he'll say something new. I would assume that too. I would think, well, he would say, are you sure you're gonna go? Maybe we should just send a raven. You should stay here because, you know, we're tight. We've been through a lot of shit. But he just says, bye. He's like the ignorant husband that doesn't say anything when you're speaking to him, but he literally seems totally autonomous to it. There's moments of clarity when he's remembering things like what Littlefinger said about chaos, but here he is with someone he's had a meaningful relationship with. He's been one of his solid supporters for years since he's been out in the wilds. And that's when Meera just does what most people would do after being through a horrific experience. She's like, is that all you've got to say? Bye? You know, Summer, Hodor and my brother died for you. And that's when she realises that you died in that cave. Meaning that from the moment he became the three-eyed raven, and remember, whilst they were escaping and Summer died and Hodor died and the three-eyed raven died, he was basically downloading the three-eyed raven matrix. And although he seems a bit present now, he's actually cognitive, but he's not there. I think he literally is too busy seeing all the past, present and future that he's not really present for his own. He's told himself that, yeah, Bran Stark is dead, and she reiterates that. She's like, well, he died in that cave, didn't you? And it's like the most anticlimactic ending for someone who's been so much of a support for Bran, and they've been through so much, and it's just sad that she's going to be leaving whilst he's basically not at his best, because he's not really there. And that's why it's a shame, because eventually I have a feeling that Bran's eventually going to kick back and become more of himself, and by that time she'll be gone and it's too late for that, and I don't know if we'll ever see Meera again, so that is quite sad. So as Meera's leaving Winterfell, we finally get to see Arya arrive at Winterfell, and it's a beautiful shot of her looking at her home from a distance, and you're kind of like, please don't turn back now, because you get this moment where you're thinking the music's swelling, it's all Stark all over the place, and you're like, please don't change your mind at the last minute. But she gets there, but she's greeted by these really potty-mouthed guards, and they're just basically saying fuck off, and she tries to say, I'm Arya Stark. They turn with, you're not Arya Stark, she's dead. And she says, well, I want to see the King of the North, Jon Stark, my brother. King's 1,000 miles from here. Just you. And at one point he tries to grab for her, the short, fuller-figured guy, as they would say. And she said, you know, one way or another, I'm getting in this castle. And if you turn me away, then my sister is going to be pissed. Because if I'm not the real person, then big trouble for me. So they sit her down whilst they go off to see Sansa. And she's having a look around, and as she looks at this part, it makes me think about when Ned and Catelyn were up on there watching them shooting arrows, and it's quite somber, but you can see how much it's warming to her even though it's freezing cold. And when they return and see she's not there, they have to go and speak to Sansa. Now, when Arya first came, she mentioned, speak to Sir Roderick, speak to Master Lewin, and obviously Master Lewin died and Roderick got his head chopped off. But when they're bringing this up to Sansa, and they're basically downplaying it like, she's not really who she says she is. And when she hears that this person Arya had mentioned Sir Roderick and Master Lewin, she realises, I know exactly who she is, and I bet you I know where she is. I could have said it better, but either way. She comes down and she sees Arya staring at the likeness of Ned. And it's quite sombre at first. I'm expecting running into each other's arms, but at this point, they've been through so much, it's not that kind of reunion. So when she says, am I supposed to call you Lady Stark now? And she says yes. And before you know it, it's the most touching moment when they finally get to clap each other. It's like, are you real? Are you real? And Sansa says, you shouldn't have run from the guards. And Arya's like, no, I didn't run from the guards. You need better guards. Very true. And they talk a bit about Jon and how she's been left in charge. And when they look at Ned's statue, Arya says what we probably all are thinking. It's not exactly right. It should have been carved by someone that knew him. And of course Sansa says that everybody that knew him is dead. And Arya says, well, we're not dead. Then Arya brings up, so is it true, did you kill Joffrey? And Sansa says no. And Arya says, well, I was kind of mad that he'd been killed, and he's obviously not going to be on my list anymore. And she says, what list? And she says, the list of people I'm going to kill. And Sansa laughs and Arya laughs, but Arya puts on this fake facade laughy like she's just some silly little girl and she's having a little fun laugh when you know that's not true. They have another hug, which is absolutely lovely, and that's when she mentions in a very somber tone that Bran's home. And you see Arya's face go from really happy to kind of somber because you know that there's something behind it. She knows that something's not quite right. So Arya and Sansa go to find Bran, and obviously he's in the Godswood near the Heart Tree. And immediately Arya comes in and hugs him really close, and it's beautiful. I mean, we've got almost a full set of Starks here. And when she pulls back from the hug, he immediately goes into almost creepy Bran mode and says, I saw you at the crossroads. And obviously that's going to take Arya back. But to even more creep it out, he said, I thought you were going to go to King's Landing. And she said, well, I was going to. And Sansa, meanwhile, being the third wheel in this conversation, says, why would you go to King's Landing? And Bran says, oh, because Cersei's on her list. Arya's really creeped out about it, but Sansa says, well, Bran has visions now. And he's holding the dagger, the cat's paw as I like to call it, and he said, I got it from Littlefinger. It was the one that was used to kill me, obviously a very rich person. And he hands it to Arya, and there's this really pregnant pause where there's a reason why he's given it to her. And she says, are you sure? Because it's Valyrian steel. And he says, what uses it to a cripple? Now both Arya and Sansa are wary of Littlefinger, and Sansa says quite rightly, because she's been burned by him, Littlefinger doesn't give anything to anybody unless he thinks he's getting something back. But at this point, creepy guy is in the wings just waiting to pounce, just you wait. So reunited, Bran, Sansa and Arya go into the castle, and as they're passing by, it's like there's this energy knowing that the rightful people are where they should be, and Brienne and Pod are watching, and Pod says a lovely thing. He says, you kept your oath to Catelyn Stark and you got our children together. And there's like this bitter disappointment in a way in that she said, I barely did anything, but the fact that they're together is beautiful. But to ruin that nice warming moment, creeper Littlefinger is watching up from the ramparts looking down, and you just know this is going to cause, he's going to cause friction. We've got 3 Stark children together and he's going to cause something, and whether or not that works, we'll find out. We then cut to Brienne and Pod sparring, and Pod's getting his ass kicked as per usual. And just as they're finishing off, Arya comes in. She's fully leathered up like Stark armour, and she wants to spar with Brienne, and Brienne's kind of like, I'm not sure about that, but she admires her Valyrian dagger. So when Littlefinger and Sansa are above, they're watching this, and there's a slight humour in it, because I think Sansa and Littlefinger think, she's going to get thrashed. Brienne's fucking practically indestructible. So when she pulls out Needle, and even though Brienne's like, you need a better one than that, they then go on to start sparring. And from the minute Arya's working her sword, it's this, you see Syrio Forel, you see this beautiful water dancing, moving, and even though Brienne manages to knock her down in this picture, Arya scissor kicks, like, get straight back up, and she's straight back at it. And there's this brilliant bit, I haven't got the picture for it, where she's dropped, Needle's been kicked out of her arm, she's got her Valyrian steel dagger, Brienne captures her wrist, but Arya flicks it into her other hand, so she gets her dagger up to Brienne's throat, and Brienne has her sword at Arya's, and it ends up like a draw. But there's like this mutual sort of admiration, and when Brienne says, "Who taught you to do that?" and she says, "No one." Now, obviously, this is like a revelation for Sansa. She realises maybe this list thing is not all for shit. She means this. But the way Littlefinger looks down at Arya and Arya's looking up at him, I don't know, they keep referencing, every time something happens in Winterfell, it cuts to Littlefinger watching like a creeper. And you're thinking, he said before that you have to anticipate all different kind of directions where a thing can happen or the way people are going to work, and you'll never be surprised. I think he's looking at her, Sansa, Arya, Bran, he's thinking, if I can flip it my way, it'll be my benefit. But he doesn't realise these children have been through so much that no one's going to make them do anything they don't want to. And I think this is kind of the beginning of the end for Littlefinger. Moving south back to Dragonstone, we see that Missandei has noted that there hasn't been any word from the Unsullied, and Daenerys reassures her that everything will be fine and Grey Worm will come back to her, and Missandei says he better. And there's a moment where she asks about what's been happening with her and him, and she says many things, and we all know what that means. Moving swiftly on, we see Jon asking Daenerys to come and see something. He brings her down to the cave and he shows her that, and you see it in the walls, there's just all this dragonglass glittering all over this cave. And he says, this is as much as we'll ever need, and I just wanted to show you what we were looking at. And you see the murals, and she's fascinated by it, and he says, well, these were done by the children of the forest. And she notes, well, it was obviously before all a man. And when he shows her this image of White Walkers, and it doesn't really show, I'm sorry this picture doesn't show it as well, but you actually see the blue of the eyes, and that's when he says, you know, it wasn't just men that fought the White Walkers, it was the children as well. We worked together, and that's what we have to do if we're going to have to survive. And Daenerys says, I'll quite happily fight for you as long as you bend the knee. Now, you don't see Jon answer, but as soon as they come out the cave, Sir Davos and Varys and Tyrion are there, and they say, bad news. The Unsullied got to Casterly Rock and we've got it, but they burnt all the ships, they can't leave, they're stranded, and Highgarden's been taken. So at this point, Daenerys is pissed off. She's like, I've listened to you, Tyrion, I did what you wanted me to do, and look where I am, I've lost all my freaking allies, they're all gone. But at the same time, she's a bit unruly when she speaks to Tyrion, but when she turns to Jon, he says, you know, first thing you've got to do is don't use your dragons and turn on King's Landing, because it won't work. Because she'll be no better than any of the tyrants that have came before her. We then cut to Jon and Sir Davos talking, and he asks Sir Davos asks what Jon thinks about Daenerys, and he says she's got a good heart, and he alludes to the fact that he sees sexual tension there. They then speak to Missandei and they start to question her about what would you do if you wanted to leave, would Daenerys let you leave? And she says, yes, of course, my queen would let me leave. We all follow her because we chose her to be our queen, and if I wanted to leave tomorrow, she'd give me a ship. Speaking of ships, we see a Greyjoy ship in the distance, and it turns out to be Theon and the few Ironborns that he has left. And when they land on the beach, it's probably the worst kind of time, and Theon is a shell of himself. We all know what his deal is, but Jon, when he sees him, you know straight away there's animosity. And before Theon can really say much, only that he needed to see Daenerys because of what happened with Yara, Jon says the only reason that you're not dead is because of what you did for Sansa. That was the whole helping her escape to thing. And when he's asking, obviously after this bit of animosity, where's Daenerys, I need to speak to her to help get my sister, that's when Jon says that she's already gone. In our penultimate scene, we're in Highgarden, where Jaime, Sir Bronn, the Tarleys and the Lannister armies are collecting all the gold and all the harvests to get to King's Landing, but to do that they have to travel up what is known as the Rose Road. Now, as you see, Jaime has collected all the gold and they've collected all the harvest from the Reach, which is very plentiful, and he takes a bag of gold and gives it to Bronn. Now Bronn ends up bitching about how he wants the castle, Highgarden's free, but Jaime said, you'll have the pick of all the castles once we get rid of Daenerys, we have to fight this. And he senses that Jaime's in kind of a foul mood, but he doesn't know why. And Lord Tarley comes along, and yes, he's annoying. He's basically condoning whipping farmers and everything just to get all the stuff through. Now, as they're escorting all their booty, or the spoils of war, all of the gold eventually is through the gates at King's Landing, but they've still got most of the food to come through. And they speak to Dickon Tarley, and they have a bit of a repartee about what fighting and how did he get on fighting the Tyrells, because obviously they were their liege lords at one point. And as they're kind of procrastinating, Bronn hears something in the distance, and you look up and it takes forever, but they realise something's coming. They have all of the Lannister soldiers prepped and they're all ready to go, and it looks impressive. Bear in mind, these are the ones that went and marched on Highgarden, yet there's something more. You start to hear the screaming, and this is the Dothraki screamers, right? That is their main tactic in war, to be screaming and hollering, and they're horse lords, and they've got the arachs, and it's coming, and because there's just waves and waves of them coming, even though all the Lannister forces are ready and prepared, and you know they're battle hardened with what they've seen, but then you hear this screech in the distance, and both Jaime and Bronn look up, and before you know it, you see Drogon flying towards them. So the first time in like 100 years, a dragon is seen in Westeros. For the first time ever, the Dothraki are on Westerosi soil. So when you hear it coming, and when Daenerys says that famous word Dracarys, Drogon just spews fires at this infantry. The Lannister army is on fire, literally. They're crisping up in their armours, and you see the sheer horror of it because they're not prepared for that. They've been prepared to overthrow other sort of armies. They know what they're looking at. Dickon looks absolutely terrified, and so he should, because in this fiery flame you see the Dothraki actually riding their horses through the flame, which would make it even more terrifying for everybody. And bear in mind, this has only been the last minute or so. Already bodies are turned to like charcoal briquettes, and the Lannister army is doing their best, but they're being plundered by the Dothraki, who are fantastic horsemen, and even some of the saddled horses are escaping. They know to leave, and eventually the horses of the Dothraki and the Lannister army clash. Yes, the Lannister army managed to get down some of the Dothraki and vice versa. You see Jaime, he's mostly been a commander all his life, like Bronn said earlier. He said, you're a commander, you're not an infantryman, you should fuck off. But give it to it, Jaime says, no, I'm going to stay with my men. And you see the Dothraki getting up on their horses and actually shooting arrows, which just goes to show you how adept they are at horse husbandry, as I should say. Now it's getting thicker and faster, and it's just carnage everywhere. Hopefully the music I chose for this will be very good, because at this point all we're doing is seeing the damage, because Drogon plows through this one area and he's setting fire to all the caravans, the food stores, everything is getting on fire. And bear in mind, as he comes across, he's like this fire, it's like the cleansing with the dragon's fire, and it just starts to flow all the way across. And it reminds of the Field of Fire, which was a very famous Targaryen victory when Aegon and his sister wives came. He roasted a whole load of soldiers on a field, and that was one of the key moments of the Targaryens becoming the rulers of Westeros. Now, it's looking like the one area in the middle where Jaime and Bran are in a small retinue of soldiers, and they're watching this horrific sort of shit show going on. Drogon is ploughing through it. Jaime is looking absolutely bewildered, but he's seeing the men that are fighting under him, men that he no doubt knows as Lannister soldiers. He realises, they're all killing my men. We need to get something done already. Cue Bran, he's riding his horse. He has to get over to the Scorpion. Now, as he's riding one way, a Dothraki warrior screamer is on his horse, and he peels over to the side and he lops one of the legs off of Bran's horse, and then he just collapses into the ground, and his satchel of gold is lying there. The flames are there, and there's this moment where he's like, should I take it or should I run? No, he gets up and he's like, I have to get there. And bear in mind, between all the carnage, sorry, I'm getting all riled up, there's people on fire, he's surrounded by fire, the dragon's flying overhead, and he's running, and he manages to get over to the Scorpion. Now, it's a rig inside this caravan top. He gets one of the bolts ready. A Dothraki comes towards him, he shoots him, it's very, very good, the thud. And then Bran pulls down the canvas and it flops down to reveal the Scorpion that Qyburn has been making. Now, a little word of note, I don't know how many he's made, if he's only made one since he realised that they have to fight dragons, but Bran sets up the arrow and he's ready to aim. Meanwhile, Tyrion and a small retinue of Dothraki are watching from sort of a hilly knoll further away. You see the carnage, Lannister soldiers on fire, the horse carnage running from it, and you can see Tyrion's kind of pulled one way to another. This is his family, this is his family name, and he's watching as Drogon comes and he makes a pass back. Now, Jaime's there, and you realise this isn't going to look very good, and you're actually worried that he's going to get roasted like the rest of his men. And you see some of the precate sort of charcoal soldiers being trampled on, and they're crumbling to dust around him, and Jaime's got no hope except for Bran. So Bran has got an arrow. Daenerys is coming down from a very high position, and he shoots off an arrow and it misses. It looks like it's a bow hair from hitting her head, but then the second one hits true in basically the shoulder area between the wing, and you hear the yelp of Drogon, and Tyrion looks absolutely pained, but don't call him out because it was a long drop. He managed to hold himself up, he managed to prevent himself from crashing, and then he full on flamed the Scorpion. Bran had to jump out the way. And then he even uses his tail to smash the bits of the Scorpion. Now Daenerys, in a moment of, well, I better get this sorted, she gets off and she's trying to pull out this very heavy metal freaking arrow. Bear in mind, when they tried using regular arrows, it won't pierce his hide, so we do know that it's a strong arrow. And you can see Tyrion going, I can see what Jaime's going to do. He's going to go for her, and he's willing him under his breath, don't do it, you idiot, fucking run the other way. But Jaime picks up a spear and rides towards her. Now, at that moment I was like, you mad gallant fool, I can't believe you're doing this isn't going to work. And Daenerys is fully committed to pulling out this arrow. When he's right there, he's like, all I need to do is spear her and this will be the end of it. But I don't think you realise, killing her's one thing, but there's still a live dragon. And as she looks shocked, Drogon sort of moves his body so he's kind of in front of her, and then freaking full on flame, and you see it bubbling up from the back of his throat. The flame shoots out. Thankfully, Bran clips Jaime and pulls him into the water. Now, this is the problem. The Lannister armour, compared to all the other armours I've seen, it's very gaudy, it's very heavy. Now, it managed to get him into the water so that he wouldn't be flamed, but it ends with pitch blackness of the, I think it's the Blackwater Rush. And so he's sinking, and that's how it ends. And you're like, for fuck's sake, how can it end like that? I'm really sorry, I'm getting really animated. You have no idea how many times I've been over this scene. But this to be continued moment, don't freaking rule him out. He'll either, I think in a symbolic sort of gesture, will have to start pulling off his armour to get up. And it's kind of like symbolic of he might need to shed this Lannister image to survive or to fight his own battle. Because right now, although it looked good for Cersei, she's not going to take to that well. And I don't think he'll be in a good position if he survives and gets to the top of the water. There's still a dragon there. She ain't going anywhere, and from the trailer for the next episode called Eastwatch, I think unless Bran pulls him the other side of the water and they manage to run away, it looks like Bran and Jaime will be Daenerys' prisoners. Now, the highlights of the episode is definitely Arya, Sansa and Bran being reunited. Seeing Littlefinger basically shit himself the fact that he can tell that Bran knows about what he said to Varys. It would be also great for the whole list thing to be brought up again, because I would love for Arya to, within a confidence with her siblings, say that she killed the free asshole and all of his family, the male members anyway. Of course, the highlight and probably the best part of the episode is definitely the scenes in the Rose Road where Daenerys basically decimates the Lannister armies. Now, this is a victory for sure. She burnt all the crops that were meant for King's Landing, but at the same time, you're kind of like, well, why would you destroy food? Because eventually, if she's the ruler there, she's going to be short on food. But it's not really about that. It's about getting rid of the might of the Lannister army. Now, in saying that, it is a victory, but because it's mentioned that the gold sort of caravans have made it through the gates of King's Landing, you're like, well, Cersei definitely has the gold to pay back the Iron Bank, and that means that they'll probably support her even in spite of what Daenerys did by decimating the army. Now, the next episode, I hope we see Daenerys being firm but fair, but I have people keep mentioning about all the memes, and I'll show you a picture in a minute, about how she's either going on about bending a knee or she's a bit scary and how she's being a bit mad kingish. I don't think she is, because she's been in the years been almost fair to a fault, and it's kind of cost her. But I think she has to be, now that she's in Westeros. It's not just a plan, it's not I have to wait a while for my dragons, I have to wait a while till I get more soldiers, I have to wait a while before I can actually cross the Narrow Sea. She's accomplished so much. She's also lost a lot since she's been in Westeros. All of our allies have basically been decimated, but at the end of the day, with one of her dragons, her main dragon Drogon, who I like to think that is imbued with the spirit of Khal Drogo, she has the might with the dragon. And yes, Cersei is off her nut, and she's got Qyburn on her side, and he's way more got a wherewithal about him than like Pycelle was. I still think that we're going to see more hurt on both sides, but I think Jaime is going to be the linchpin in this, because I know regardless if people read the books or not, Jaime has been 100% for his sister. Now I know it's kind of icky with the whole incest thing, but let's break it down. He killed the Mad King to save thousands, millions even. He basically took shit for years, but he was in love with his sister and he was true to his sister to a fault. She, on the other hand, is very duplicitous. She's a hard drinking, sleep around woman. In the books it's even worse. She's drinking too much and she slept with Lancel, who we all knew was a drip until he turned into one of those weird cultish people. But Jaime, I think, could be the linchpin in this storyline, because if she pisses him off, I think if he turns away from her and we get him together with Tyrion, I think there'll be a better connection there, because he now knows that Tyrion didn't kill Joffrey, that it was the Tyrells. Possibly, he doesn't know about the whole Littlefinger involvement, but he doesn't realise at this point he is basically a pawn in a game. He's not an actual real player in the game, because he always seems to be circumvented by circumstances, like losing his hand, having to push Bran out of a window. He's never had to choose for himself, and I think if he really chose, he would basically turn away from his sister, because she's mad. Look what she did. She blew up the Sept. She killed not only like freaking Mace Tyrell, her uncle, you know, Kevin Lannister, the High Sparrow. I mean, she killed good people that were just at the Sept, because that was the way it works, because they're the landed gentry, they're the court, and she was willing to do that. And even though our son killed himself over it, she still seemed kind of dismissive about it. Maybe she's not even true with her feelings to the man that she supposedly loves. She just dismissed him. Oh well, he killed himself, so what? That's the past. But what she realises, what you reap is what you sow, and in this episode what she reaps is definitely what she sows, and now she has no food. Now she's lost the Lannister army. But the whole point with that little small scene at the beginning of the episode with Tychonosaurus saying, well, once you pay us back, we're quite happily will give you more, like in a loan. It's kind of weird. Why wouldn't she just use the gold she's took? But she's going to pay them off, and they will in turn back her. Now, if she has the backing of the bank, she's got the wherewithal to get the Golden Company and any other person or peoples to be on her side. God, I've been rambling really freaking a lot, but I'm really sorry about the lateness of this review, regardless of when you watch this or whatever. I do work hard on it. It's hard to get it done during the week, so it's mostly a weekend thing. So, yeah. Episode 4, fantastic. Really got the blood and heart pumping and racing and everything. I really look forward to the next episode, but we're now in the bottom end. Now we've only got 5, 6 and 7 left, so where are we going to go from here? Who knows? But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.